Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode. I'm John, and joining me is David. We're excited to bring you another insightful conversation, and today's topic is something that impacts millions of people around the globe, the importance of the English language.
Hey John, and hello to all our listeners. Yes, English has become such a critical part of communication, whether it's in business, education, or everyday life. It's fascinating how a language that began in a small corner of the world has grown to become such a global phenomenon.
Absolutely. In this episode, we'll dive into why English has become so important, how it's used in different parts of life, and how learning it can open doors for new opportunities. We'll also share some useful words and phrases along the way to help our listeners improve their English skills.
That's right. So, let's kick off by talking about the origins of the English language. While the language has evolved over centuries, it has roots in many other languages like Latin, German, and French. Its rich history has made it versatile and adaptable.
Yes, and that adaptability is one of the reasons it's spread so widely. As the British Empire expanded, so did the language. And now, even after the empire has faded, English remains a dominant language for communication, especially in international settings.
In fact, English is often referred to as a global lingua franca. That means it's the common language that people from different linguistic backgrounds use to communicate with each other. Whether it's a meeting between a German and a Brazilian, or a conference with delegates from multiple countries, English is often the bridge.
And we can't ignore the impact of the internet, right? The rise of the digital world has made English even more indispensable. Most content online, from websites to social media to research papers, is predominantly in English.
Yes, I've read somewhere that over 50% of websites are in English. That gives English speakers an advantage because they can access a lot more information than those who don't speak the language fluently.
It's true. And beyond just the web, let's talk about English in education. Many of the world's top universities, like Harvard, Oxford, and MIT, conduct their courses in English. So, if you want access to some of the best education opportunities, mastering English can be essential.
That's a great point. English is also the language of science and research. Many academic papers, regardless of where they are published, written in English. This allows scientists and researchers from all over the world to share their findings with a global audience.
That's such an important factor, especially for those in technical or scientific fields. But let's not forget the business world. English is the go-to language for international trade, negotiations, and conferences.
Exactly. When companies from different countries do business, they almost always communicate in English. It's the language of contracts, emails, and presentations. So, being fluent in English can definitely give you an edge in the global job market.
Speaking of the job market, English proficiency has become a sought-after skill for many employers, even in non-English-speaking countries. Companies that operate internationally want employees who can communicate effectively with partners, clients, or suppliers across the globe.
It's not just about speaking the language either. It's also about understanding the nuances. Business English often comes with its own jargon and phrases, and learning those can help you fit into professional settings more smoothly.
Very true, and beyond the professional world, English plays a big role in entertainment. Hollywood movies, popular music, and many best-selling books are produced in English. So, understanding the language allows people to enjoy these cultural elements without relying on translations.
Yes, and even in non-English speaking countries, a lot of young people learn English because they want to enjoy the latest movies, songs, or even video games without waiting for dubbed or subtitled versions.
That's a fun motivator. It's amazing how entertainment can be a gateway for people to learn a new language. I've even heard stories of people improving their English just by watching TV shows or movies.
Definitely. Immersing yourself in English media is a great way to pick up new vocabulary and understand how native speakers use the language. It's not just about grammar, it's about tone, context, and cultural references.
Exactly, and English isn't just for fun or business. It's also used in diplomacy. Many international organizations like the United Nations and NATO use English as one of their official languages. This ensures clear communication between different countries.
Right. English is often the working language in these organizations, meaning that diplomats, government officials, and representatives use English to discuss important global issues.
So, as you can see, English has a significant presence in almost every major sector, from education and business to entertainment and international relations.
And let's not forget tourism. When people travel to different countries, English often becomes the language they use to communicate, whether they're in Europe, Asia, or Africa.
Good point. I've found that in many non-English speaking countries, locals will often know at least a little English to help tourists find their way around.
It's definitely helpful. Knowing English can make traveling easier and more enjoyable. You're more likely to find English-speaking staff at hotels, airports, and tourist attractions.
And, of course, learning English opens up travel opportunities to English-speaking countries like the US, UK, Australia, and Canada. These countries are home to diverse cultures, and being able to speak the language helps you connect with the locals.
It's not just about getting by during travel, though. It's about truly experiencing the culture. Language is a big part of that.
You're right. Language is more than just a tool for communication. It carries the history, values, and traditions of the people who speak it.
And with English being such a widely spoken language, learning it means you can engage with people from all over the world, not just in English-speaking countries.
Yes, I've met so many fascinating people from different cultures because of our shared ability to speak English. It's a language that really brings people together.
It's incredible how English can bridge so many gaps, cultural, geographical, and even generational.
And the great thing about English is that it's always evolving. New words and phrases are constantly being added, and that makes learning English a lifelong journey.
Absolutely. Even native speakers continue learning throughout their lives. English is dynamic, and that keeps it exciting.
So, to all our listeners out there who are learning English, know that it's okay to make mistakes. The important thing is to keep practicing and expanding your vocabulary.
And don't be afraid to speak. The more you use the language, the more comfortable and confident you'll become.
That's excellent advice, David. I think we've covered a lot of ground on why English is so important. But before we wrap up, let's go over a few words or phrases we used in today's conversation to help our listeners improve their vocabulary.
Great idea. Let's start with lingua franca.
Right, lingua franca refers to a common language used by people who speak different native languages. For example, English is often the lingua franca in international business.
Next up is proficiency. This means the ability to do something well. For instance, a proficiency in English helped her secure a job abroad.
Another useful word is nuances. These are subtle differences in meaning or expression. For example, understanding the nuances of the language is key to speaking fluently.
And don't forget immersion. This refers to surrounding yourself completely with a language to learn it. For instance, she improved her English quickly by living in an English-speaking country and immersing herself in the culture.
Lastly, let's go over versatile. It means able to adapt to many different functions or activities. An example sentence is, English is a versatile language because it's used in so many different fields.
We hope these words help improve your vocabulary and make your English learning journey a bit easier.
Yes, and don't forget, learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. Keep practicing and stay motivated.
We're glad you joined us for today's discussion. Thanks for listening.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye, everyone. See you in the next episode.